It hardly needs saying that players often look to games for, well, their gameplay, but sometimes this isn't enough to carry an experience alone. In this day and age, a title's artistic expression, channeled through visuals, music, or story, is often just as important as how it plays. As a result, we've witnessed a number of games saved by their story, stepping in when mechanics prove subpar and turning opinions around in a flash. Sometimes this requires a lot of legwork, but other times all it requires is a simple, effective plot twist. Many games have famously included them, and we have covered ones that completely shut the bed with them before, but when they're executed well, plot twists can elevate an average game into a great one, bringing a fresh new perspective to your own actions. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 9 mediocre video games made awesome by twists. Number 9, Crackdown 2, the villain isn't really the villain. Crackdown's long-awaited revival may have seen mixed reception upon arrival in 2019, but before then, it had been 2010 since we'd last seen it. An open-world action-adventure, Crackdown 2 took place 10 years after the original, finding Pacific City under threat from the Freak virus. Days gone, eat your heart out. Ordered by the agency, you're informed that former agency scientist Catalina Thorne has caused this outbreak. Stating that she performed unauthorized experiments, this led to her expulsion, and Crackdown 2 tells a tale of revenge. Seeing her infecting an agent cloning facility, she forms a terrorist group called Cell, who unleash the virus into Pacific City's population, claiming the agency has its cure. Except that's actually not what happened at all. Through a series of collectible audio logs, it's revealed that the agency manufactured the Freak outbreak and provided incorrect propaganda to maintain control of the city. Having seen her clinic invaded by the Freaks, Thorne then instead led protests against the agency and was targeted by their propaganda machine as a result. It's a great twist, but should have come as no surprise to those who completed the original Crackdown, where it was revealed that the agency had manipulated Pacific City's gang crisis behind the scenes, allowing them to save the day and keep in power. Still, not spoon-feeding this to the player led to one hell of a realization. Number 8, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, the Rogue One ending. Playing as Commander Nick Reyes within the Special Combat Air Recon, or the SCAR team, based within the spaceship The Retribution, Infinite Warfare showed an Earth stripped of its natural resources, seeing humanity create new colonies across the solar system. With war brewing between Earth's United Nations Space Alliance, the UNSA, and the Martian separatist group, the Settlement Defense Force, the SDF, led by Admiral Salen Koch, Reyes is tasked with taking the group down. As a result, you kill Koch and devise a plan to destroy the SDF's orbital shipyard, but crash onto Mars' surface in doing so. Rallying together the Retribution's remaining crew, the team realizes they aren't getting back to Earth alive. The mission then turns into a last stand, seeing the Retribution survivors mostly killed one by one, but in this moment Reyes orders surviving crew members into an SDF destroyer, himself heading to SDF's control center to untether it. As this is completed, Reyes orders a reluctant Sergeant Salter to open fire on the center, killing him in the process. Infinite Warfare's story has no right to be as good as it is, and you should absolutely check it out, even though I just spoiled the hell out of it here. Still, it's worth playing, just don't touch the multiplayer. Number 7, Metroid, the big reveal. Metroid may have become one of Nintendo's more popular franchises, bringing in modern audiences through the Metroid Prime trilogy, but back in 1986 it was something of a mixed bag. Playing as bounty hunter Samus Aran, it saw her attempting to retrieve a series of Metroid organisms from the space pirates, seeking to use these creatures for biological weaponry. Its approach to exploration partly inspired the Metroidvania subgenre, but Metroid itself hasn't aged particularly well by modern standards, with the sequels setting the standard in terms of gameplay influence rather than this first effort. However, it still became highly noted for its twist that Samus is in fact a woman, requiring players to beat Metroid within 5 hours to witness the reveal. It may not seem that significant in 2020, but back in 1986 this was a much bigger deal, seeing her become one of the first ever female protagonists in a major release. Number 6, HAZE, you're in a Black Mirror episode. It's hard to look at HAZE and remind ourselves of its wasted potential. Initially deemed a Halo killer, Free Radical Design's FPS game was a surprise miss after their acclaimed work on Timesplitters, becoming their last release in 2008 before being bought out by Crytek. You played here as Sergeant Shane Carpenter, a veteran soldier for the ruling Mantel Corporation. Controlling the world's population through a drug called nectar, it limits what each soldier sees, drowning out dead bodies and destruction. Sent to eliminate a South American rebel group called the Promise Hand, Shane becomes aware of the drug's effect on his surroundings after a series of failed injection attempts. Every war has two sides, and upon meeting rebel leader Marino, Shane realizes he's been on the wrong side of history his whole life. Later rescued by rebels after suffering nectar withdrawal, he discovers that he's been brainwashed by the Mantel Corporation, having been fed propaganda this whole time, and then switches sides. The game was mostly a rushed mess, but this idea was admittedly awesome. It gave HAZE some story redemption, even if a Black Mirror episode would go on to do essentially the same thing, but better and in a fraction of the time a few years later. Number 5. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, explaining the cycle. Depending on who you ask about Skyward Sword, responses will likely vary. The last traditional Zelda game before Breath of the Wild, it released back in 2011 on the Nintendo Wii. Mostly seeing positive reception, it acted as a prequel to the main entries, but was mainly criticised for its linearity and controls. Set within Skyloft, a floating town above the clouds, we saw Link and Zelda as childhood friends before she becomes a princess. Seeing Zelda get kidnapped, we discover she's the reincarnation of Hylia, an ancient goddess who disappeared after defeating the Demon King Demise. Captured by Girahim towards the end, he tries to revive Demise within the past by sacrificing Zelda. Upon his return, Demise challenges Link to battle, but gets defeated, though it comes with a grave warning. Cursing Link and Zelda, Demise tells them that his hate will be reborn, cursing those that share the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero within a never-ending cycle, ensuring that their battles are doomed to be repeated. This explained a long-standing mystery, showing how these characters kept reappearing across different games without any connection to the previous titles. Demise eventually reincarnates into Ganondorf, and true to his word, the cycle continues. Number 4. Castlevania Lords of Shadow, Gabriel is a vampire. Like most Konami franchises, Castlevania has spent a long time languishing in nothingness, but back in 2010, it was rebooted with Lords of Shadow. It received positive reviews, but moving away from 2D proved highly divisive amongst Castlevania's established fanbase, and it didn't sell particularly well. Even for more traditional fans though, its story did prove quite exceptional. Set in 1047, Shadows starred Gabriel Belmont, finding Earth under threats by the Lords of Shadow after they'd cast a dark spell on it. Separating heaven from earth, deceased souls are now trapped in limbo, and Gabriel's wife Marie is among them. Heeding Zobek's advice, Gabriel sets out to obtain the God Mask, being informed that this can resurrect her, but it's split between all of the lords. After obtaining them, Zobek reveals that he's absolutely played you and reveals himself as the third lord, granted his power by Satan himself. Consequently, Gabriel defeats Satan, yes, really, but realizes that he cannot revive Marie, as this mask only allows him to see through God's eyes. It's an ending full of twists, but undoubtedly, the post-credits held a more shocking revelation. Cutting to the modern era, we discover Zobek finding Gabriel is still alive, but has since turned into a vampire, and not just any vampire, Dracula himself. Number 3. Telltale's Game of Thrones Episode 1, Ned Stark's Counterpart. Following on from their successful Walking Dead series, it wasn't long before Telltale began adapting other major franchises. Coming to us back in 2014, Game of Thrones was next in line, and this episodic series took place within the TV series continuity. Spanning from the Red Wedding to before Season 5's opening, it saw mixed reviews, but Episode 1 proved an interesting introduction. Playing as members of House Forrester, a minor northern house based at Ironrath, your family finds itself on the wrong side of the War of the Five Kings, and Lord Gregor is slain by House Frey. His heir Roderick is also presumed dead, and second-born son Asher is exiled, so Ironrath's lordship falls upon Gregor's third son, Ethan. Despite sending Gregor's squire Garrett to the wall to appease the new Warden of the North, Roose Bolton, Episode 1 ends with his bastard Ramsay Snow paying Ironrath a visit. Acting as his father's enforcer, he asks Lord Ethan to bend the knee, demanding they split their ironwood supplies with rival lords House Whitehill. It doesn't matter how you treat Ramsay here, it all leads to the same shocking outcome. Pulling a dagger on Ethan, the bastard stabs him in the neck, fatally wounding him in the process. It's a classic case of Game of Thrones using a false protagonist, but it's a twist few still saw coming. It's just a shame it was all downhill from here. Number 2, NIER, the Clone Saga. NIER Automata received high praise when it launched in 2017, but back in 2010, its prequel NIER didn't fare quite as well. A spin-off of Yoko Taro's Drakengard series, NIER followed Drakengard's 5th ending. I know, it's already confusing, seeing the Earth fall to decay, and NIER takes place 1,000 years later. Playing the titular character, NIER focused on his attempts to locate a cure for the Black Scroll, an illness his daughter Yona is succumbing to. In this timeline, Earth is plagued by aggressive monsters called Shades, which are led by the Shadow Lord. Setting out to defeat this guy, they encounter Popula and Devola, who reveal the truth of this world. Trying to save themselves from the Black Scroll, humanity separated its souls from their bodies, looking to fuse them inside disease-resistant clones known as replicants. What they didn't anticipate, however, was that replicants would develop their own consciousness, leaving their original humans without a physical form. Becoming resentful, humanity's aggression manifested into Shades, and upon defeating the Shadow Lord, yet another twist unfolds. That's because this guy reveals himself as the original NIER, confirming that you've been playing as a replicant this whole time. For those who can forgive its clunky but quirky gameplay, it's a story that more than makes up for it. Number 1, Spec Ops: The Line, KONRAD is dead. Ah yes, I know, it's another WhatCulture Gaming list with Spec Ops: The Line on it, but look, you just can't have this list without this example. This third-person cover shooter rebooted the franchise and took a different direction than the originals, presenting a much darker narrative than we were used to at the time. Playing as Captain Martin Walker, we found ourselves sent to a destroyed Dubai, coming to blows with Commander John Konrad and his 33rd Battalion. It puts a heavy emphasis on morality and war's devastating effects on soldiers and their perception of what's good, what's bad, and what's real. Having faced several battles, Walker finally meets with Konrad, and what follows is one of gaming's greatest twists. Upon confronting him, Walker instead discovers his corpse, revealing Konrad's been a hallucination this whole time. Having desperately tried to rationalize an earlier white phosphorus attack on civilians, it becomes clear that Walker's been an unreliable narrator ever since. How he chooses to handle this guilt determines the ending, leading to Walker either shooting himself or trying to shoot Konrad and later calling in the military. It might play like a basic cover shooter, but its story is so much more. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are there any games that were saved by killer twist endings that I missed off here? And do you agree with these that I have included? Either way, while you're down there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.